Sean's neighbors who experiences the Willamette River full-time. Come on up here, Sean. And he has worked as a cement finisher, but he set the hook and gave up life on land several years ago and has lived permanently on a small sailboat since then. Sean acts as a steward of Willamette Cove, and if you don't know where Willamette Cove is, it's just located just north of the railroad bridge. It's a really nice little natural area in the river. And he picks up trash sometimes left by visitors, and he keeps an eye on pollution when it shows up. So I have a few questions. I'm going to interview Sean. And I hope that you have some questions for him too, because we're going to probably have time for some questions from the audience. So Sean, let's see. Sorry. Sean, when did you first start living on the river?
June 2nd, 2012. Right, set the hook.
Okay, so that, and when you say,
Sorry.
yeah, do you want to hold this?
Anyway.
Okay, when you say set the hook, what do you mean by that?
That's where you live on the river full time. Setting the hook means putting your anchor down. I've got 5 hooks actually set right now to keep everything stable.
Cool. So, when you say keep everything stable, you mean you have a couple of boats together?
Oh yeah, I've actually got 4 boats.
Cool. Cool.
Along with 2 skiffs that I can take to shore.
Cool, all right. And what is it like waking up every morning, since you're our one storyteller who actually lives on the river, lives with the river every day, what's it like waking up every morning on the river, and do you see changes every day? Is it different every day?
No, it's, actually this is getting an echo. It actually,
Here, I'll let you.
Waking up on the river is like a new day. You can't hear me? Really? No. Sorry. Waking up on the river is like a new experience every day, even though every day lately it's been 80 degrees out. And when it rains, when it snows, when the wind's blowing hard, or it's not blowing at all, it just seems like a new day every day. Is that loud enough?
I think everybody heard you. Okay. And what kind of wildlife do you see out there, and what is the most impressive wildlife you see?
Oh, I guess the ospreys and falcons, because they'll stake out the river, and then sometimes you don't watch them. Sometimes you watch them because they're just so, majestic. But you'll notice a splash and look over and see a falcon or an osprey or something carrying a fish like a foot long. It's just amazing. And then to see them fly up, I guess it's a falcon, flies up and lives on the bridge, on the river bridge, which is 0.8 miles south of here.
And were you telling me that they had a nest?
Yeah.
Okay, so they have a nest up there. What do you like best about living on the river?
The freedom. Actually, I got a few things. The freedom, the wildlife, the cost. It's $3 a foot every 2 years, and seclusion. I like to have like a big chunk of earth.
What would you like landlubbers to know about you and others who live in boats?
That's subjective. I have no idea. Well, it's cool when it's hot. It's fun when it's stormy. And it's cheap.
Cool, cool.
But it's really hard. It is really hard.
Okay, and hard in what sense?
Physically, it's hard. You've got a lot of heavy stuff that you got to pick up and put down. You got to wrap your lines as soon as you use them, or you just have piles of lines everywhere. Your boats get dirty. You got to bring them to shore, get them close to shore and scrub on them, and that's pretty labor intensive. Raising and lowering your masts is pretty hard.
Okay, fair enough.
But mainly the lines.
The lines, okay. Well, is there anything else you can tell us about your life on the river that would be fun to share about?
Oh, yeah. One thing I never really thought about when I lived on land was sometimes I'd have to stay in the same apartment or house because I couldn't afford to move. Plus I hated packing. Well, now I can move anytime I want. And I don't have to pack.
Sean, do you feel safe in the cove?
Oh, yes, I do. I feel my boats are safe because people that pass by never venture out to the boats unless, you know, I roll them over. And it's probably kind of foreign to them. So it's kind of like, it's something in the background that they really don't notice, maybe. I feel safe.
We're gonna go ahead and open up for some questions and also some sharing from the audience now. So if you have questions for Sean, or if you have questions for the other storytellers, you are welcome to raise your hand. There was a hand up over there.
Do a lot of other sailboats there with you, or are you alone?
For the time being, I'm alone. There's been about 10 different people, you know, like groups of people that have moved in there and moved out, and I move along sometimes and come back. I've been staying at the Cove primarily all last winter and this summer.
How far have you traveled?
I've traveled as far south in the Willamette as Onsey, right before the Ross Island Bridge, and as far, I haven't gone down the Columbia, I've gone up the Columbia to Government Island and Lemon Island.
Here's a question here. Well, where were you living before you did this? How long did you obsess about this before you did it, and what finally triggered you doing it?
It's kind of a funny story. I was writing, my back went out in 2004, and I had a doctor I'd see regularly, and I was going to see my doctor one day, and I passed by this yard, and it was overgrown with berry bushes, and these bushes were growing through the sailboat, and I just looked over and I went, I'm going to go over and I'm going to go back to those people after my doctor's appointment and ask them if I can clean up their yard, make it look pristine for that boat. Just a scenario that played through in my head. And after my doctor's appointment, I came back and I rode like every bus in that part of town. I couldn't find that sailboat. But it was, I guess that was a seed planted in my head, because then the summer of 2011, I was staying in a one-bedroom apartment downtown, and I was paying about $750 a month for my apartment, electric bill, my cell phone bill, my internet, and I was doing tech work. I'd been out of concrete for a few years, and I was doing tech work, fixing computers, setting up routers, buying and selling electronics, basically. And I put an ad in Craigslist for a tech, to do tech work. And this guy called me up and he said he's got a house, he's rewiring, he wanted somebody to do low-level voltage. So I got 2 months' work through this guy, and he gave me a lump sum of cash. I came back to Portland, and just one day I was cruising down Marine Drive, and I pulled into a boatyard and bought my sailboat. I stood on it, and I went, I think I can do this. And the whole time I was thinking about living on the river, and I just kind of didn't really obsess with it, but didn't obsess with it. I just prepared. I prepared. I read the book about, you know, how to sail, and I went out there. I figured, well, if I crash, hopefully it's on a beach, and I can walk away. But I've only beached it once, and the water rose again, and I sailed away. Any more questions?
So were you a total boat novice? I mean,
Yeah.
you just decided I want to sail a boat, or read how to do it and figured it out?
I used to go water skiing with my family when I was a kid, but I never stepped on a sailboat before September 21st, 2011. And then it was the 20th. I bought the boat the 21st. And yeah, I was just going to do it. And everybody, it was at Harbor One that I got the boat, and nobody really said a lot to me. They said, you know, you're gonna find out that it's kind of hard to live out there. And I used to finish concrete. I don't mind rain as long as it's not concrete raining on me. But I got the boat to live on the river, and when I left the marina, I had no intention on going back. Then I've had You know, some people go, hey, you know, can you watch my boat for a few weeks or months or whatever, and you can put your boat next to mine on the finger over or whatever, and they pay for my rent. And I just said, you know, I'm good. I don't need a marina anymore. And I got solar power. I get my water from land. Any more questions?
When you say you docked at Willamette Cove, are you right there at Willamette Cove?
Yeah, I'm right in the cove. And
You're
actually I'm
going
not
right in
docked.
the cove? Do you have any concerns, do you ever walk out on the sand or anything?
Yeah.
Do you have any concerns about the contaminants in the sand?
Well, the way it's been explained to me is that since the river's flowing all the time, the stuff that's not heavy enough to lighten the sand, to embed in the sand, is flowing all the way out to the ocean, or it's gone farther downstream. And I swim in the water. I live for today, really, and it's probably irresponsible because of getting cancer or something later on. But
Our group has had a lecture from the Oregon Health Authority that talks about the lead in the sand,
yeah,
and we just have concerns.
I appreciate that. There's also a lot of lead in the air from cars and trucks. But no, I appreciate it. I do appreciate it.
How do you cook and eat?
Oh, I use propane to cook with, and I eat with my mouth.
You don't think about doing Airbnb and letting someone stay with you?
If they bring their own skiff, I probably could do that. I've let friends stay on my boats before. Oh, sorry.
I was reading in the paper recently, there's been some kind of ordinances passed about putting more pressure on people who are living on boats to not stay in one place for longer than maybe a couple of weeks. Have you felt any pressure from either the people you interact with or the authorities about that? Or?
The rule is, it's actually a rule, and it was mandated by the Oregon State Land Division, I believe it's called. They're really adamant about holding the police to this rule, and the rule gives the police the discretion to give somebody a felony trespassing ticket after 30 days, after not moving your hook 30 days, 5 miles. The only problem with it is that I don't think the police want to, I'm really neighborly with the police because I really have no choice. But also I take care of the beach, and I'm good with, I'm in communication with Multnomah County Parks Division. Now, the police don't really want to give this ticket. This is the way I understand it. The police don't want to give that ticket unless it's like somebody's, doing something illegal, stealing from people on the river or something like that. It gives them a tool, but they don't want to give this ticket out indiscriminately because it might open up kind of a class action suit. Because the waterways are federal. The land is Oregon Land Division's purview. But it's just, now what if you didn't have anchors? What if you didn't need anchors and you had all electric motors and GPS and you just kind of stayed in the same spot? Wouldn't you kind of skirt that law? Well, I don't know, I'm just glad that I'm in good with the police. And
I think the police don't have something better to do.
oh yeah.
I hate to get personal, but what do you do with your waste?
Well, I've got a porta potty. They sell porta potties for about $70. You dump them out, and there's pump out stations. It's supposed to be every 5 miles, but the only one that I know of here is either in Multnomah Channel or I think it's called Salties. It's like a dock up by Salties. So, yeah.
Was it fun to live on a river?
Is it fun? Oh yeah, it's the best. It's like today it was hot, so I jumped in. And before I came here, I wanted to get cleaned up, so I jumped in again.
Do you fish? Do you eat the fish?
No, I don't, because I don't have a fishing license. And I've never even caught a fish. I've never, cut one open and ripped its guts out. But there's a Safeway right up there. So I do the Safeway thing.
Sean, so now you've acquired 4 boats,
Yes.
and so how did that develop?
Well, I bought the 24-foot Buccaneer sailboat, September 21st, 2011. Around May of 2012, I'd given my 30-day notice at my marina, and I figured, well, I need a skiff, something to go from my boat to land. I was thinking ahead. So I bought this 15-foot tri-hull motor boat without a motor in it, thinking, it's definitely big enough. And it's fiberglass, that stuff doesn't weigh that much. But it was way too big, so I bought that for $20. And then a week before I got on my moorage, a gentleman that I'd helped swap boats onto trailers, from a couple, did this little swap. He brought me a boat and said, do you want this boat? It's a 22-foot fiberglass boat. And I decided to make that kind of like a workroom, spare bedroom, because it's got a bee berth in it. And interestingly enough, the first 10 or 12 times that I sailed, I didn't sail just one boat, I sailed 3 boats. I tied them all together, and I just used the 24-foot sailboat as motivation. And I thought it was pretty easy the first time because I had the wind going with me, but whenever you're fighting, whenever you're going into the wind, or the wind's not blowing the proper direction for the current, things get kind of haywire. But the first rule is don't panic.
So nothing tipped over, huh?
Not yet. Nothing's tipped over, well, unless my sailboat ran aground one time.
That didn't count. They didn't tip over though.
I was
Close though, huh?
curious what would happen the next day.
So, do we have time to share a few stories from the audience, you think? Seth, I know that you had a story that you were going to tell. Do you want to come up here, or do you want to stay there?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Seth White, and I'm a scientist with the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission. But I'm not actually here representing that group tonight. I'm just here as a representative of the Cathedral Park neighborhood, because I live here in the neighborhood. But it strikes me from hearing other people in the audience that there is a lot of other people in the neighborhood. If you're from the neighborhood, raise your hand. I'm just curious. Wow, there's a lot of folks here that strolled on down. What about just North Portland in general? Great. I'm really interested in this idea of neighborhoods as defining sort of how we relate to one another, and I think it's neat that all of us in the neighborhood came down here. So the story that I want to tell is just a very quick one, and it's about a little canoe paddle that I took with my 2 daughters over here. Lita and Paya, can you stand up? Lita is 9, and Paya is 6, and we had a really interesting little paddle just right over there on the bank of the river. It started out, this was on a weeknight, it was maybe a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, and my wife came home and went to go get some groceries, and I had been at the office all day, so I was pretty tired, and usually what we do is we just take a little bike ride around in the park or take a walk or whatever, but I was feeling super adventurous on this particular night, and decided to put the canoe on my shoulders and walk it down to the river, because I want to feel like I'm a river person even when I'm not at work, right? I just want to, that's another group of people, right? River people, we have ways of saying hello and all that. So I put this canoe, it's a 17-foot fiberglass canoe, and I put it on my shoulders, and the girls have their life jackets on and their paddles, and we're walking down, and I look like a big green banana walking down to the river. And every time I turn to like look across the street, the girls are ducking so that we don't get hit by this canoe as it turns around. We launch the canoe into the little bay over there by the docks, and we start paddling, and Lita takes the paddle. She's a really good paddler. I'm in the back. I've got them way in the front so that we're not riding, like this. I'm a little bit heavier than both of them combined. We just have this really, really great paddle. It's really beautiful. The sun is shining. It was a day that was a lot like today. That you can imagine it. The St. John's Bridge is all lit up, and there's birds flying around. It's just really pastoral and idyllic in a lot of ways. I'm noticing that even though we're going upriver, we're actually moving pretty fast. We're actually, making really good time. And I'm thinking, wow, we're just great paddlers. We're just really, really good. And I feel this kind of light breeze in my back, like this is really going well. And I look up and I see the bridge, and it's a little bit farther away than I expected it was. And but we're still liking it. And there's all those old pilings and docks from, when St. John's used to be this big industrial port, and there was a lot of economic stuff going on here, and we're kind of having fun and weaving in and out of this labyrinth of posts sticking out of the river. And then I look back again, and the bridge is really, really far away. And that's when I realized that this, what I thought was a light breeze, is actually the wind that's been blowing me pretty quickly, and I didn't feel the wind because I was going in the same direction as it. So I thought, okay, it's time to turn around then. And if you've ever paddled a canoe in strong wind and tried to turn it around, you realize that the side of the canoe is sort of like a sail, right? And at the same time, we're going upriver, so the current is coming this way, and the wind is going this way, and the canoe wants to go over. So the only way to keep a canoe from going over is to paddle like heck, right? Because you're providing stability to the canoe. So we're all paddling and we're veering into the beach, and by now we're maybe a mile or so down that way. And that's when I noticed that the beach is not it's not empty, it's populated, and there is, as a previous storyteller described, this kind of Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn kind of village out there. There's a lot of shanty, driftwood houses and old tents and things like that, and there's a lot of homeless people that are out there on the beach. And they, frankly, don't look very happy to see us at this point. And we're paddling straight for them because I can't turn the canoe around. And I'm sure they're friendly, and I'm sure they're great, but as parents, that when you have your kids with you, any little fear, you sort of feel everything for them. So, and one guy doesn't actually look so friendly, he's this big muscular guy, and he's kind of standing there watching me, and we're paddling straight for him. I'm kind of afraid I'm going to tip the canoe, I'm afraid we're going to have a strange encounter, I'm afraid we're not going to be able to paddle back up and get back to our house in the bridge. Ludushka and Paya, they turn around and look at me, and they've got these huge smiles on their faces, and they say, "Dad, can we yell ahoy to those people?" So there's something that you have to know about our family to give a little context. In one way, they meant it as you think I mean it, ahoy matey, like pirate talk or whatever. And they did partly mean it in that way, but we're a multicultural family. My wife is from Czech Republic, and so they're half Czech, and we're a bilingual family. And the other meaning of ahoy is hello. It's the informal meaning of hello. If you go to Czech Republic and you speak to the people, it's like the Spanish. You've got the vosotros and the nosotros. There's a formal and an informal way, and there's all these really complicated rules of when you can say ahoy or when you can say dobry den, and it has to do, are you talking to a man or a woman or a person older or younger, or do they have a PhD and you just have a master's degree? It's really complicated. But one of the things I learned when I was over there was that anytime you're on a river, and if you're paddling or if you see anybody on a river, you can always say ahoy. You can always say it. It's totally okay. It doesn't matter. All those rules disappear and they're non-existent anymore. You can always greet someone like that. So anyways, back to the river. We're paddling into the river, and we suddenly get the boat turned around. We don't run ashore. We don't go into there, and they, the homeless people kind of walk away. And we didn't have any problems. We were able to paddle back up, and everything was fine. And I don't know what would have happened if we would have ran the boat ashore. I don't know if they would have, been angry with us for being there. Maybe they would have laughed at us or made fun of us. Maybe we would have had an argument. More than likely, they probably would have helped us. They probably would have been really friendly. Maybe we would have had some of the stew that Roger was talking about earlier. I don't know what would have happened, but here's what I do know. I do know that the statistics about the homeless in Portland are really not a very nice story. There's about once every week a homeless person dies on the streets in Portland, and about a quarter of that time it's natural causes. Another a quarter of the time it's suicide, and the rest of that time it's accidental deaths, usually by drugs or alcohol overdose. I know that the average age of a homeless person's death in Portland is 46 years old, which is way too young. And I know that in Oregon there's about 2,000 students in our schools today that come from homeless families. So these are our neighborhoods. So what I'm proposing is that when we think about neighborhoods and we think about ourselves as citizens of the neighborhood, or at least this is how I want to start thinking about it, is that I expand what my definition of a neighborhood is and who my neighbors are, and that we include all the people, you know, the tribal people, the otters, the salmon, the people who are living on the banks of the river or in boats on the river, and we all consider ourselves neighbors. And in the first step of doing this, I propose that we use a greeting so that we recognize each other, and that'll be ahoy. So, want to try it on 3? 1, 2, 3. Ahoy! Thanks.
So for the next part of this evening, we have a closing ritual, and we have some of our neighbors who are doing a movement ritual, and they would like us to walk down to the water's edge at Cathedral Park. So I'm going to invite you all to stand if you would like to join in, and we're going to head out that door and down the boardwalk to your right. And follow the lights, follow the candles.